I'm triggered already.
Of 200. Yeah. Okay, let's do this.
Did you just know how to poke me? Here we go. Good to see you,
Professional
man.
instigator. Yeah, good to see you, man. What time is it for you right now?
Very civil. 4:23 p.m.
Lovely. And you're doing
Yeah.
and you're going to do some yoga.
Got yoga at 6, and then sauna afterwards, and then I'll be in bed early because it's not a 9:30 recording.
Yeah, nice. Feeling high from the
Yeah.
mindful movement and sauna therapy.
Yeah.
I need to book in a sauna this week. My coach has got me basically focusing on a bit of heat training because I'm going out to Devil's Gulch.
Oh, great.
So
Right.
before I actually get out there, I'm going to have to...
Are you going to run and go straight into the sauna? And then...
Yeah, I think that would be a good shout, wouldn't it? Like, I don't have a sauna at my gym, but there is this really sweet sauna and ice bath place. It's my favourite place in London, to be fair, which is not far from me, so I'm going to head there. And they have some, like, really spicy saunas.
Great.
Like proper,
Need
you
it.
know the ones where you get in and it like hurts your eyes. You're like, whoa, this is insane. So I'll do that.
A little bit of peppermint oil, just really clear out the.
Sometimes
the
they
airways.
come in. Sometimes they come in with like a wooden bowl of little ice balls.
Yeah. That's the good stuff.
Yeah, which has like special oils in it, and then they announce what flavour, what scent of oil it is, and then they.
And
put
then
them
do
on.
they like whip the towel around and
Yeah, sometimes.
just absolutely blast you with heat?
Yeah. Sometimes you'll like put some water on the heat, and then 2 minutes later someone will come in with ice. You're like, oh shit, we've just stoked it. And then you're in there, you're all sort of like pretending not to suffer, but suffering away.
Do you ice bath much? Or
I
cold
do.
plunge?
I do when I'm doing sauna. I do. I do. I mean, anecdotally, I do like how it feels. Like, and I certainly, it's way more painful if you've got like achy legs. Really, I do it for the kind of psychological side of things. Like you
Agreed,
feel amazing after.
So much sharper from it.
Yeah, and you just feel alive. So I like that. I do like ice baths, but I like ice baths, but I don't make any claims about recovery because jury's still out on that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've really dropped my cold plunging for recovery purposes, but I still think there's a lot of value in it for mental sharpness, freshness, even at the end of the day or start of the day, you're just like, just instant like clarity, reset.
Yeah. And to be honest, not to sound like a ice bath bro, but the sort of mental fortitude that you gain from sitting in an ice bath for 3 minutes is something.
It definitely does something.
100%.
Even on a micro level.
Yeah, just sitting there, and you have to... I think the thing I like about it is I love this sort of stuff. I love the kind of idea of reframing the experience you're having, seeing the sensations you're experiencing as just sensations and not having this sort of negative narrative attached to them. All that sort of stuff is very easily practiced in an ice bath. Whereas running, you have to run like 40k to get there.
Yeah,
like,
it's a good shortcut, isn't it?
It's a shortcut to that space where you have to test yourself and your mind. So I like that sort of stuff. Not everyone's into that, but I like that sort of stuff.
I like trying to put it in once a week if it's there, if it's available. But yeah, heat training, I'm excited for. Lots of data about that. Lots of gains.
Yeah. For sure, man.
Dude, what's been happening?
What's cooking?
Tell me about you. You've had a
Well,
week.
it's Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday the 24th. This is going to come out next week. Wait, when am I releasing this? Do I release this on Thursday? Anyway, we usually do last Thursday, so I don't know what day this is out, but
technically that should be in 2 days then.
I should
Thursday.
probably put this out in 2 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so it's the 26th right now. You're listening to this on the 26th. So it's Tuesday, 24th, and I was at Stag Do this weekend, which was fun. We were in Norfolk, which was looking nice. Norfolk was looking nice this weekend. Nice sun, beautiful, like English countryside.
Stunning.
And it was a great stag, although I was just telling you before this, I had some van issues. I locked my keys in the van, so I had to get AA to come and help. So that was a whole drama. And then I was in a car crash, a minor car crash.
Minor car crash.
I've never been in one, but...
Well, I'm glad you're here, you're okay, and that the other car is okay.
Yeah, the
driver is okay.
The other car got off very cleanly. Cassie, my van, needs to go to get some body work done, unfortunately.
Poor Cass.
Poor Cass. She's been beat up, man, this weekend. She's been through it. But, you know, she's still trooping on. So.
Just another little test for you at the moment. I feel like every month you get a new test.
Yeah, I feel like that as well, but I try not to feel sorry for myself.
No, you can't.
I mean,
but
so we were like, we obviously had this little minor accident. It was not serious. It was just like one of these bumps, and then you just have a big sigh and then talk about insurance details. But we were in traffic yesterday on our way back to London, and we were sat still for an hour and a half. And whilst we were there, police go through the traffic, and then 5 minutes later, ambulance goes through the traffic, and we're like, oh, this accident might be quite serious. Eventually, we all start moving, and as we passed the incident, I don't think I've ever seen a more horrifying scene on a motorway. Like, it was unbelievable. So the first vehicle we saw, it was like a van, a sort of medium-sized van, with the back just completely smashed in. Full write-off, like easy write-off. No way you're fixing that car. Just completely smashed. So someone's gone into the back of this van. And then as we pass it, the front of it is also smashed. And then we go about, 100 meters further, and there's another van, like a more boxy, bigger van. That's clearly been the other van in the incident. And the front of that van was just completely written off as well. Just an absolute smash. Highly likely there was a fatality. I mean, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And it put our little incident into perspective for sure. Like I don't know, maybe because we had been in one and we'd been involved in some traffic as well, we just kept seeing accidents on the road. It was insane. I just think there's too many cars on this small island. Yeah, madness. So we were just sort of saying how grateful like it could have been so much worse.
Seriously.
Even from like a minor incident perspective, like ultimately just a bit of a bashed up van on my front. No misalignment of wheels or like anything wildly expensive. And we're all okay. They're all okay. Like nothing really happened in our case, but
it'll be smoothed out soon. And happy to be running today, tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. How are you, man?
I'm good. Feeling like I've fallen into a bit of a flow here in Melbourne, which has been nice. Happy to report my run streak continues. Must be getting close to 50 days. But yeah, my fitness is slowly coming back, which was a huge kind of goal of mine since returning from overseas. Work has been steady, and one of the best things I did on the weekend was go down to a friend's farm, have a campfire, go to a bathhouse, really bank some good sleeps, and doing pretty good.
I like that as a highlight, banking good sleeps. I need a bit of that.
Yeah. Just like how good my brain felt on Sunday morning. I was like, wow, I've missed this. So that was a highlight. But also I've tried to run with more people rather than doing a lot of my running solo. And I've been running with a bunch of dads that start at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. And 5 a.m. in winter it's a tough wake up. Like my alarm's at 3:55, and I was just like, oh, is this worth it? But I was like, I don't often get people that want to run 30K at the pace that I want to run it, that I like talking to. And at the moment, in this little pocket of time, it exists. And I was like, it's worth it. So that's
Nice, man.
that's been something that's like slightly shifted, but it's contributed to, I think, an increased well-being.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like no one who is not nocturnal should be setting an alarm with a 3 at the beginning.
Yeah, like that's the first run in, honestly, like probably over a year that I don't do that very frequently. And it was going to be a 6 a.m. start, but then they're like, oh, we got to get the kids to wherever by 8, and takes 2.5 hours to run 30K. So 5 a.m. it was.
Man, hectic. Well,
But
yeah, these parents
sunrise
are operating on a
was
different level.
Yeah, it was pretty inspiring. I was like, well, your run's done by 7:30. You feel on top of the world, and then he's like, I have all weekend to spend with my kids. So I was like, respect, because I imagine as a parent, it's probably pretty easy to like not go and run 30K.
Mm-hmm. I'd say so. Nice, man. Well, should we do some show and tell?
Yep. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Should I intro what show and tell is?
Yes.
By now, if you...
Lou doesn't know.
Because Lou doesn't listen. Yeah, I was just saying to Josh that I was sort of rummaging around. You know, it's like 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. here. So just sort of rummaging around in the room, like, what should I do for my show and tell? And he's like, what? You're what? I was like, show and tell. I'm doing That's Notable. Have you not been listening? We do show and tell now.
Wow, this follow cam really went down with you for show and tell.
Oh, yeah. So this show and tell is... what show and tell is quite simple. We bring something to show and tell why. And it can be physical, it can be digital, it can be both. We can have a couple. There are no rules. But recently I took part in 2 events in 2 consecutive weekends.
Yeah,
which I was very
congrats.
proud of.
We had a little call the other day, and we both kind of mutually celebrated this. It's just like, fuck yeah, 2 completed events, and like sizable events as well. So
yeah, decent events.
Feels
I'd
good
say,
after a DNF.
Yes, that is actually the important context. I DNF'd MIUT, was sad, and then went into a C race and a B race. So I categorise my races A, B, C. So MIUT was a B race. Endure 24 was a C race. And to define a C race, that is just one where P1 is have fun. Well, it always is, but P1 is to soak up the vibes. And wow, Endure 24 is run by the Vibes Cartel. It is a serious race if seriousness is measured by how fun it is. You're going to have to bring the...
There we go. I wanted to see a good showing. There we go.
Okay, this is a good showing. Here we go. There's the medal.
So you ran for 24 hours?
I ran for 12 hours or so. We did 13 laps each.
Yeah.
So I did it as a pair with my mate Brim. We started off just doing 1 each and swapping.
Does this go... Is that 8 kilometre loops? This race? Yeah, gotcha.
8 kilometre loops. I think there's just over like 100 meters, maybe just like 100 meters of climbing in each of elevation gain. So it's pretty flat, but there is some undulation to kind of allow you to create a template of, hiking and running. Most of it you can run. There's just a few uphills that you don't need to. So I was hitting 45 minutes on each lap, pretty
swift.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Pretty good. We did like an hour each. We did a lap each, and then by the night time we were like, okay, we were getting like quite tired, but like, should we do doubles, which was always on the cards, potentially to do 16k and then come back with the other person having slept during that time and then swap. We did that once. I did 16k, Brim slept, I slept, Brim did 16k, and then we got back and or did we do it the other way? I can't remember. Anyway, I basically said to him, I don't think we should do that again. It was actually better to just do one lap each.
Yeah.
It's just more of a rhythm. You're not actually getting good sleep in anyway. And we were like, the sun's going to be rising soon. Let's do 1 for 1. So we did that, and we were happy with it. Once we got to the 200k mark together, we were like chuffed. I mean, we got to the 100 mile mark, and we did that in definitely less than 20 hours. I can't remember. Maybe it was 15 hours. So once we got there, we sort of really eased back, and it was funny. Like the transitions swapping initially were just immediate. Like, I'm waiting there, high five, off he goes.
Yeah,
he's waiting there, whatever. And then eventually, like, it was like maybe we'd spend like 10-15 minutes just hanging out in the camp between each lap, which was fun. So yeah, big event. I mean, really crazy big trail event, that one. Just like a huge number of people, because you can do it in teams of up to 12. You have people there.
That's
a team
awesome.
Of 10.
That really must contribute to the vibe.
It's huge, bro. Like, you turn up and there's just thousands of people. Not everyone's doing it, but there's just loads of people. So there's a whole festival around this race. So if you're looking for a race to just like have fun at, I mean, we're putting together a bit of a team for next year. We're gonna try and do a team of more than 6 people, and then basically you can just like hang out in the camp, drink and eat and have fun, and then like when it's your turn to do a lap, it's like off you go on your little side quest.
Yeah,
and you come back having done it. So you do like maybe 2 laps in that version. So yeah, highly recommend Endure 24 to anyone who wants to do that.
So good.
And then the next weekend, I flew out to Slovenia for a weekend with Ultra X, and did
they fly
Ultra
there?
X Slovenia. I flew myself there. They actually did give me entry, which was nice of them.
Sweet.
Which was really cool. Yeah. So this is the medal. Quite cool.
So this was 110 kilometers. This one.
110 kilometers over 2 days. So I'd never done a stage race before.
You've been collecting some mileage.
Yeah. So like two
big weeks,
100k weekends. Yeah. Over 100k weekends. Which is difficult. It's difficult to kind of manage that from this is a period of time where I should have been like peaking on my volume for Devil's Gulch, and I did that in a way that did it through races, relatively unconventional way of doing it, and difficult because you're not really tapering for these races. I didn't really taper for these races. I just sort of did maybe a week taper and showed up and did them, and just managed my body. But I got a black ribbon as well, which is basically Ultra X. Each event, they have like a blue ribbon, a white ribbon, and a black ribbon. The black ribbons are like, depending on the event, they're like the most sort of sought after or whatever. And in this event, it was if you did sub 15 hours, you got a black ribbon. So I was very happy with that. I was actually only just under.
Dude,
I think I
great
did like
run.
14:50 something. So that was cool.
So you basically got a black belt.
I got a black belt. Yeah. I could talk forever. I mean, I do have an episode sort of dedicated to these 2 races, but stage race is a new thing for me, and I've always sort of put it off because I've been more interested in races in one push, and it's just been my interest. But yeah, really cool stage races.
How were your legs on the second day?
My legs were relatively cooked, but I was sort of like, okay, I feel like I've definitely done something the day before, and you're continuing on having done the first day 60k. The elevation, so the distance is one thing, 60k, it's not nothing. The elevation was another thing. First day was about 1,800 meters of climbing, but really the heat was the killer. It got to, I mean, it was consistently over 35 degrees Celsius. And the second day got to 38 degrees in the town. So madness, like unbelievable sort of temperatures. In Fahrenheit, that's, 95 Fahrenheit. So crazy, crazy stuff. Really just changes the game. When you're running in that sort of heat, you're obviously thinking about hydration and electrolytes and fueling.
So much, so important.
You're just cooked, man. It's
Yeah.
madness. So I was really proud of myself because I feel like I really had to endure. Like there's a definition of endurance. Like on the second day, especially, I had a few instances. I fell over, and when I fell over, I had this.
Oh yeah, you banged up your knee.
I banged up my knee a bit, and I had this overwhelming sense of shock and stress come over me, and that was a wake up call. The mountain was saying chill out, and so I did. But I did it, and I went through the finish line, and actually ended up coming third overall, which was really cool. A small field, not like a packed field of ultra mega athletes, but yeah.
Still, it's like I always think with these things, like running 110k, whether it's a stacked field or not, it's a freaking long way. It's an impressive effort.
Yeah.
Even in a stage, like breaking it into stages, like 50k day is still huge. So.
Yeah, and I mean the stages you could argue makes it easier. You could also argue makes it harder in some ways,
yeah.
Because you
different challenges.
We're camping. So the day before the first stage, we had really bad sleep. I had better sleep the second night, but you're dealing with it. And a big lesson learned was I operate way better with poles, and I didn't take poles for this because I was
rookie.
I don't know. I was just sort of thinking, I'll put more sort of load on my legs, and I'll pack light and not take poles. I did regret that massively the next day. It was a stupid decision.
Good intel, very good intel.
Yeah. So a lot of people who have never used poles say, "Oh no, I hate poles. They're annoying." And a lot of people, justifiably so, get annoyed by other people using poles near them. But I would say that if you wanna sort of spread the load across the body, and if you have a good operation going, maybe you got a quiver or something like I do, poles.
Poles is the way.
So there's my show and tell.
Great. Well, very impressive.
Thanks,
very
man.
stoked for you. double finish in big events. That's Put that.
What have you got for us?
Mine is very small, and just to provide context, why? So every Wednesday I host a run club. A note to the runners. It started last year in the lead up to my exhibition. It's at night time, and it's a 5 kilometer run. Everybody comes back to an art gallery. We write a poem, have a cup of tea, but everybody wears lights, and which are provided by this brand Nog, and I'm now responsible for charging them all every week. So I have hundreds of lights at my house at the moment, but they're tiny.
Wow.
I have just loved this little light this week, but I've loved it for reasons other than running. And I was babysitting my mate's little 4-year-old this week, and I was like, how am I going to entertain him this week? So I just took 4 of these running lights, pinned and put them all over him, and I was like, dude, you're a transformer. So, and then last night I was walking my friend's dog. Again, put this little light on the dog. The dog was chuffed, could see where it's going. I wasn't going to lose the dog, and that is my comical
Amazing.
show and tell.
I love it. How do you attach these lights?
I guess I'll use my microphone as such, but they have this little, they're basically like a clip.
That's great.
And yeah, I put them on my shoes, shorts. I just think they're actually a very good safety feature. But from an ultra running perspective, if you needed a secondary light, this would be the biggest, not the biggest hack, but a very good lightweight option as a safety or like secondary light. Like it's so small.
A lot of ultras demand that you have a backlight. That you have like a red backlight, and I at MRUT that was the case actually. And I got on Amazon, I got these little like keyring lights, which are okay. It sort of hangs off in the bag, but that would be a lot better.
Yeah, so actually very functional for running, but also great entertainment for a 4-year-old.
Yeah. So. Well, you got a few extras probably to give him.
Yeah,
100 likes.
Exactly. So that's my show and tell.
That is an operation as well. Charging all those lights, I struggle to remember to charge my phone. So.
Yeah, they're all in a power bank at the moment. A 20-piece power bank. So
mad.
Who knew?
A quick thank you to Innovate, who are supporting this episode. If you followed my running journey, you'll know I'm a huge fan of their gear because it's built for the kind of running I love. Rugged, unpredictable, out in nature. What I like most about Innovate is that they don't try to be flashy or overcomplicated. It's just kit that works, whether that's their trail shoes, their waterproofs, or their packs. The grip on their shoes in particular is unreal, the kind of grip that gives you confidence bombing down a muddy trail or picking your way across wet rocks. And their clothing, it's light, technical, and built to last. If you're someone who cares about function over hype and you want gear that's made for the outdoors rather than just looking good on Instagram, go check them out at innovate.com. That's INOV8.com. It's proper kit for proper running, and you can get a discount, 15% off, with Runnable at checkout. That's RUNNABLE at checkout for 15% off. INOV8.com. Thank you to Innovate for supporting this podcast. Nice.
What do you got? Topic
well,
wise.
I have a video. We did this last time. It worked quite well. So I stumbled across this video, and it's a funny one because I don't. Do I talk about it before I just play it, or I don't necessarily?
I would say play it, and then we'll dive into it.
Let's try and do this.
There's a cute YouTube video where they have a simulated race with all the different animals. And so the cheetah, the horse, the antelope, the human, they all line up on the starting line. And you can see as the video goes, the cheetah's kicking everybody's butt for 200 meters. But then when you get up to a mile, the antelope is the fastest. And if you extend out to like 100 miles or beyond, the human is the superior endurance creature on Earth. They have 100-mile races here in California where the horses compete on the same course as the humans, and the human record is faster than an endurance horse for the Western States 100-mile run. Now, we're just like you mentioned, we're capable of great endurance achievements, but that does not mean that we are designed or evolutionary adapted to get up and run long distances day after day after day in pursuit of completing a ridiculous event like a marathon. And the marathon has been glorified for many years as the ultimate achievement in the running community, but it's far too long for almost everyone on the planet today to train for in a healthy manner and even contest. And so what you see with marathon runners, when they cross the finish line, if you took them over to the emergency room, they would present as if they were having a heart attack. That's how messed up their blood work and their liver enzymes are when they cross the finish line. Cute YouTube video.
There we go then. Don't know who the bloke is. Don't know what the podcast is. Primal Shift podcast is where that's from. I think anyone, I don't know, any podcast with primal in it, we should be wary of. Right, what's your take on that, or should I just throw my take out?
You go first.
So what he's saying in that clip is that essentially the human is the ultimate endurance athlete.
It really starts in a positive note.
Yeah, which is true. We're perseverance hunters. I think that's the term for it, where we, our ancestors would quite literally just chase down for tens, if not more, miles, chasing down and fatiguing their prey until they could just sort of surround it and kill it. That was kind of how we operated. We're specifically evolved to sort of be optimized in long endurance distances. So he starts off by basically highlighting how superior the human is to other animals in the longer distances, which is very true. And then he goes on to essentially say that we're not built to run mega distances every day, and the marathon distance is a ludicrous distance that people shouldn't be running, basically. Now, it sort of half triggers me because, I think anyone who runs marathons and is into that sort of thing is going to be annoyed by that, because you're sort of painting the marathon distance as something extremely unhealthy. But it only half triggers me because the thing is, what I see a lot of is this. What I'd agree with in some capacity is I see a lot of this sort of glorification of the marathon distance. And for a lot of people, there's this idea that you're not like a real runner until you've done a marathon. And this marathon milestone is really the aim for everyone. And that's kind of like the gold standard minimum that you should be doing. And I don't agree with that. I think that it's just an arbitrary distance. We've sort of attached this, glorified idea of what a marathon is. And, to be a runner, you definitely don't have to do a marathon. You definitely don't have to run long distances. You can run a few K a day, every day. You don't have to do events. So I sort of agree with it in that sense. Like you don't have to run marathons. And actually, what I agree with in a big way is that there is a lot of risk that is attached to training for and running a marathon for most people. The reality is most people don't run marathons, and those that go to pursue the marathon distance, a lot of those people don't manage their load properly. They don't train in a way that is sustainable. And so it's not untrue that a lot of people have issues, physical issues, caused by training for and running a marathon. That is absolutely true. However, there is certainly a way to train for, as an ultra runner, I'm obviously going to say this, there's certainly a way to train for marathons and beyond in terms of distance in a sustainable and healthy way. And I think that it's sort of akin to saying something like running is bad for your knees. It lacks nuance, it lacks detail, and in fact, it lacks truth, because there is a way to train for these things sustainably. If you manage your load, if you ramp correctly, if you strength train, if you do the right things, you can do these distances absolutely in a safe way. I am someone, and you are someone, who could go and complete a marathon without any issues. Today, you could go and finish 40 kilometers and not have any, you certainly wouldn't be put into the ER and be showing as if you're having a heart attack or whatever he said. That's not the case. But I do think that what it does highlight is that the marathon distance is a serious distance, and it's not something that you can just sort of fall into, complete 5 weeks of a 10-week block and then just have a go. There is high risk with that approach. And I think the good thing about that video is it highlights how much of a big achievement completing a marathon is, and how seriously people should take it. It's not something you should take lightly. It's not something you can just go out on a Sunday and do. You do have risk of injuring yourself, and we see that all over the place. And that's why this reputation for the marathon, this negative reputation for the marathon and runners exists, because people don't approach it in a way that is required. They don't approach it with respect, and they don't approach it with they don't take the right approach. They don't ramp appropriately and build mileage. So overall, I think that I disagree that it's I disagree that we shouldn't be running marathons. I think that you can run marathons, but I agree that it should be approached in the right way. You should ramp over a very long period of time. The longer time you give to train consistently and prep for a marathon, the better. I think that these training plans online, 10-week training plan for a marathon block and all that sort of stuff, they're too short. they are essentially operating on the assumption that you're already a consistent runner. And many people go into these plans not being a consistent runner, not preparing their body. And what ends up happening is they have issues. But you can properly prep. You can spend a lot of time prepping. You can ramp slowly. You can build up your resilience, your endurance, your muscular endurance, and get to a point where you're prepared for the marathon, and risk of injury is very low. I think that's my take. What's yours?
Great take. Probably don't have a lot more to add on that other than it's just such a nuanced discussion. I think a lot of what you said is kind of what we chatted about last time with the Michael Versteeg comment, and it's like a marathon is a very hard race. It's a very long way, and it needs to be respected and for people to do their due diligence. I think it's unfair to vilify the marathon. Oops, sorry, I just turned on my little red light.
Mood lighting for the hot take.
Yeah. But yeah, I think to put the blame on the marathon and call the marathon unhealthy is not right. I think it's more the approach, as you said. And I find these discussions kind of difficult, particularly when people take a black or white approach, because it's just like, well, yeah, being an athlete, being a high-performing athlete, racing at a high level is, I would say, unhealthy. Not being prepared as an amateur is unhealthy, but there is a way to do that. However, if you look at the way most modern humans live now, it's like we're sitting down a lot, what we're eating, our phone consumption, whatever. Like, there's a million examples of like things that are unhealthy. It's just like the guy making that comment, if he went through his life, I'm sure there's practices that he would do that are equally as unhealthy as like the stress of a marathon. And then from like a medical perspective, again, I'm not trained or anything, but had my like bloods done the other day and an ECG. It was like a regulation checkup. And it's like, as a trained athlete, my ECG would be alarming if it was like a regular person. But as an athlete, we have a very strong muscle being our heart, which pumps very hard because of the amount of blood we put through it. Yeah. And it's so
increased stroke volume is something that comes from training,
that's it. And again, it's so nuanced that it's like we've now have this adaptation that outwardly would look unhealthy, but in the right context is fine, more than fine. So yeah, and then I again with like, maybe we're not made to run like back-to-back days. Again, we're not made to do a lot of things, but we do. And it's kind of what we do around the outside of it.
Yeah, I think what you said there, highlighting the sort of sedentary lifestyles we live. I think when we're talking about these sorts of things like running, being bad for your knees, or or just the marathon distance being unhealthy and all that sort of stuff, we've got to think about what the cause of the injury actually is. Is the cause that you ran a really long distance, or is the cause that you are living a sedentary lifestyle and then you ran a long distance? I would say the nuance comes from context.
Yeah,
it's not just that, okay, this person ran a really long distance and they got injured, therefore running long distances is bad. No, it's that this person ran a long distance without being prepared for it. It's like, let's take the gym, for example. If you put a 100 kilogram barbell on someone's shoulders and they tried to squat it and got injured, that doesn't mean squatting is unhealthy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you shouldn't squat because this person got injured. No, it means that they weren't prepared for that weight. And actually the cause of the injury was that you overloaded weak muscles. And that's what we're doing with running quite often. People are not preparing their bodies for the load. And so what we then end up seeing is these injuries come from doing marathons, let's call, if the marathon is that 100 kg squat, the marathon isn't to blame. The 100 kg squat isn't to blame. The preparation is to blame.
To blame. Correct.
And so there's the nuance. Glad we cleared that up.
Yeah, nuance is everything. Nuance is my favorite thing in 2025 because I feel like the internet lacks nuance.
Yeah, well, it doesn't grab attention, nuance, does it? So,
No.
we need long form podcasts to
Tell you
sort
what,
everyone out.
Tell you what does grab attention though, as a
Go on.
segue, is the BPN Go One More Ultra
Yes.
or Backyard Ultra. And I
Mhm.
want to bring this up in a discussion with Dead Cow Gully. I want to
Yeah.
get your thoughts, but
Do you know
because-
much about Dead Cow Gully? You're obviously closer to it.
other than it's in Australia, I don't have a huge, history on it. Don't know a lot. Other than
I don't.
it attracts
I don't
a
know
strong
heaps.
field.
Yeah, I don't know heaps other than it attracts a strong field, and I think records have been done there, and I think it's like becoming this sort of backyard for backyard runners. Like it's a real.
It is very backyard-esque.
Yeah.
And I'll highlight two very distinct differences outside of the actual 6.7 kilometer loop on the hour every hour. One of my friends recently did it. He made 31 hours for his first backyard. A great effort. And I found it incredibly difficult to track him for this race. And we were chatting about it. They have, I think, a live stream, but I was like, I don't want to watch a live stream to see, like, to try and get 1 second of my friend running by in the dark. But he said the founder or the race organizer decided to go against a live stream, tracking, because it cost him $6,000 to have for the event. So he'd rather, and then as a result, ticket prices go up, less people run.
Yeah.
Turns them off. So he removed the leaderboards, the distances, the tracking, and it was just very manual, as backyard is. And I was like, I think that's actually great. Like, what do I want most? I want more people running. I want more people in events. Stunning. Then you have BPN, which just felt like this high production series of, you only got to, I don't know how he chose the runners that went, but it felt like the runners that went to BPN, it was like, are you bringing a media team? Are you going to be like showcasing the warm up, the shopping, every single detail? Like, how good's your camera crew? How good's your production? And I was like, it felt so much more about this like production than it was about the running. So again, got a lot of views. Great for Nick Bear. Incredible marketing stunt. Released a book not long after. His audience grew. I'm sure BPN grew. Launched a few of the athletes. It was a great story. But yeah, two very different approaches to backyard. And
a great event to attach to the BPN tagline. Go one more.
Phenomenal.
Which is like amazing.
Yeah.
Is that
as a marketing stunt, I was like, this is epic. Like, you've got a ranch out there. You've put on a beautiful dinner. For me, like, coming from someone that was like used to go around on tourism boards, and they were called for meal trips, and I'd go to Sri Lanka and they'd be like, all right, we're going to take you to the best destinations. You got to produce this amount of video. I was like, this is like a famille trip for runners. Just being like, we're pulling all the influences to like influence the shit out of Backyard Ultra.
Yeah, it's funny, man. I mentioned I was in a conversation with a non-runner about, I was talking about Lone Wolf and the sort of, or at least I was talking about the sort of backyard concept and explaining it. And then he said, oh, did you see this Last Man Standing event in the States in Texas? And I sort of smiled and said, yeah, that was a backyard. Yeah. And immediately I knew, it's really interesting because you just have way better social media coverage of that particular event than you do for Dead Cow Gully or any other.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with. I don't think there's anything wrong with the approach that BPN took by any means. I think that
As someone that's starting a brand, it's like, for me, I was like, that was just a playbook of like what to do.
yeah, and I think as ultra runners, especially like people who love the vibe of a backyard, we do run the risk of basically responding negatively to an event with loads of good coverage because we're sort of like, we like the fact that our thing is niche. We like the fact our thing is not mainstream. I think there's something in all of us that we're all kind of. I sort of refer to myself as like, I'm an ex-indie kid. I used to. I listened to like the Zootons when everyone else was listening to Akon. I sort of wanted to be different in that way, and I've all of my interests through my life have been slightly different. Like when everyone's playing, the mainstream sport, I'm going over here and trying to do something slightly different. Just because I want to be different, I want to be niche. I'm attracted to that stuff, and I think there's something in all ultra runners that's sort of like that. Like the marathon, it's mainstream. We don't want to do that because it's just like the standard thing. We want to do something more niche, something different, and that's also fine. But we do run the risk of like screwing our nose up at these mainstream characters and media coverage, or like those with big followings and stuff like that coming into the space. And I think that's a bad thing. I think like we should be welcoming that overall, because if we're all about inclusivity, if we're all about growing the sport and increasing interest, then that's sick. Just because the BPN Go One More event exists, it doesn't mean Dead Cow Gully doesn't exist. Actually, it could do favors for Dead Cow Gully. It could do favors for all of these small events.
I think it would definitely lift Dead Cow Gully up, because people are like, well, if they're watching it from Australia, what's the next event I can do? Dead Cow Gully. That's great. I guess I would love to see a hybrid, like an intersection where it's just like, imagine if Harvey Lewis and Phil Gore and all of these guys had that quality of coverage and storytelling around what's going on at Dead Cow right now.
Yeah.
And it's because it's almost like Dead Cow Gully is like the Grand Slam right now. That's where all the big dogs are at. But it was like BPN was almost like this like division 2 or 3 level of backyard. So it's like,
sure.
And I think it would be great to see like those runners at Dead Cow against the top runners, because then it gives the like everyday punter and like someone like your mate be like, oh, did you see that in Texas? It gives context that like, all right, these people are doing epic stuff, but this is what their level is against the best, and storytelling and showcasing that. That's like, the thing is, it rarely happens where you get the elites and the purists and the indie versus the mainstream and the big players and the well documented collaborating.
I think yeah, okay.
You know?
I've got a funny comparison here.
Yeah.
As a drummer, like drumming was like my favorite thing as a kid. As like a teenager, I was really into drumming. I was really into all these drummers, proper like drummers, if you know what I mean, like all the top best drummers in the world. And I knew all these names that no one knew because they weren't mainstream. And then you had a few drummers who came out who were like mainstream drummers, like the Blink-182 drummer Travis Barker. Is that his name? Mm-hmm. Travis Parker.
Yeah.
He became like really famous because he did these like drum covers. And I, as someone who was like really into drummers and stuff, I didn't really much like him because I don't really like his technique. I don't like his style. I've grown up now. He's an incredible drummer and he has a very unique, cool style. But I sort of always got annoyed by like, people were like, oh yeah, Travis Barker, like he's a great drummer. I'm like, yeah, but he is, but you don't know these guys. Like these guys are the serious guys. And in some ways I I can liken this thing to that. You have all these really incredible athletes doing Go One More. Like, they're doing loads of laps. They're putting themselves through a serious amount, and what they're achieving is insane. But they're not like Phil Gore, the previous record holder. They're not Sam Harvey, a previous record holder. They're not Harvey Lewis, a previous record holder. They're not these like top backyard specialists who, if you're into that thing, you're going to be like, no, you should watch these guys. These guys are going to do, Sam Harvey is trying to do 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah, 150 laps.
Unbelievable. The last year was 102 by Phil Gore. He's like, do you know what? Let's round up. It's nuts what these guys are doing.
That's
and I think
6.25 days of running non-stop on no more than probably 10 minutes of sleep.
So we're talking about unhealthy.
Extraordinarily unhealthy.
Yeah, that is objectively unhealthy. But
talking about consistency as well, it's like inconsistent in this discussion. Talking about training, doing something healthy, and I'd be like,
But yeah, we're not saying we're not here saying everyone should go do it. What we're saying is this is an insane feat of human endurance, and there are at least like 5 competitors. I think they did just break the record for the most number of participants in a backyard event to surpass 100 miles.
Yeah.
Which is a cool record.
87 people.
87?
Yeah.
Oh my days! I thought it would be like 10. There's 87 of them out there.
Dude, there was only until a couple laps ago, there was still 10 people at like 75 laps.
Yeah, madness. Of course it's going to be like 87. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, anyway, crazy stuff happening out there. I think like there's just this desire when you see like Go One More, you see the coverage it gets, and you know that although it's amazing what they're doing, it's not the top of the sport. It's not the top of that specific event. It's not like the most impressive backyard that's ever been done. But you see, everyone's sort of talking about it as if it is. Obviously, there's going to be some small amount of like frustration. Frustration is probably a strong word. I mean, not frustration, but just there's a small amount of desire to sort of showcase the best.
I would say for me there was this like frustration because I'm just like it wasn't showcasing what for me is the best in this like particular realm of the sport.
And it's an interesting and unique challenge that ultra has, because in every other sport, the Olympics, for example, that's the best. It's the best of the best.
Yeah.
And if you had lower league stuff getting better coverage than the Olympics, it would be strange. Would be like,
but it's also, I guess, like another like example is like Jake Paul and Logan Paul, these YouTubers, like Viners, YouTubers, TikTokers that are now like having these like, I don't know, $50 million fights.
That's a great example.
That's kind of the equivalent, and I guess at the end of the day, it's humans are wired towards entertainment. Yes.
So it's like, that is a perfect example. You have Jake Paul entering the fighting scene, boxing. Boxing has so much legacy. Mm-hmm. It's got, there are boxing fans and coaches and boxers who are annoyed by Jake Paul entering because they know that he's not the best. Yeah. Like, he's just a YouTuber. He's not the best. The nuance to this is that actually he is a pretty damn good fighter, and he's become exceptional. But when he started.
So of these guys that Go One More, it's like 54 laps. It's like, I would say that is exceptional.
That's exceptional. Exceptional. But the coverage doesn't measure up to the quality, the standard. And I think that's the sort of gap that we see, that fans see, that like it's a bit frustrating, because it's like, so like boxing fans are annoyed because they're like, well, the best of the best should be getting the best coverage. They should be getting it should be the highest prize money. It should be all of this, for the best people that have dedicated their lives to this sport. Whereas Jake Paul's getting that. So that obviously there's a bit of frustration. But then the other side of the coin is, do we not want to be entertained? Do we not, like, what's wrong with that? Someone can what's wrong with someone coming along and creating amazing coverage,
Yeah.
amazing.
I think it just becomes like a lot more about the personalities in the event than the actual discipline or the practice.
Sure.
But I would like to present a solution rather than just pretend or like present as if I'm complaining.
Yes.
I had a guy, Cole Townsend, on my podcast a few weeks ago, and once we finished, we were kind of chatting about this, and he's like, the solution is like not to put the onus on the athlete. It's not to put the onus on Phil or Sam to go and be these like mega YouTubers or influencers or creators. It's like they're freaking good at running a long way, so let them do that. But what would be cool is if brands, I guess, they did more research into the nuances and the different types of running, and they're like, we're going to send a team to be Phil's storyteller. We're going to find the best storyteller, the best videographer, and we're going to let Phil do his thing, and we'll do that. And then I think that's what would be epic, whereas I think brand has gone more towards like paying the influencer to run and tell stories, and it's great, and you get something like BPN. But what if the brand was like, oh, we'll take a risk and see if we can create our own traction and our own story by investing in a team to surround the athlete?
And look, it's not actually a massive risk. If you let's take Harvey Lewis, because he's like one of my favorite ultra runners. He's such a he just embodies everything I love about the sport. You know, he's a teacher, and by all accounts, he's a great teacher at that. He is someone who just wants more people involved. He's someone who started running and got a 5-hour marathon, and he spent like decades trying to get the sub 3, and he's a record holder in the back. I love the guy. He's not going to be out there creating social media content.
No.
Right? But he's a great subject for that. And the reason it's low risk is because it doesn't take much to send a kid who's got some social media skills out with a camera and a phone to document and create content about this guy. It doesn't cost much. Put 10 grand behind it for a decent brand with a budget. Allocating 10 grand of budget to follow Harvey, that is generous, that budget as well. I was going to say 5, but allocate 10 grand.
I know a lot of videographers that would do that for sure.
The only risk there is that, you know, some would argue you're not going to get, you're not going to get the reach from that, because Harvey Lewis doesn't have a massive reach. Well, he does have a decent reach, but he doesn't have a massive reach. You're not going to get that, but you know, you can make it happen. Like, let's say, I don't know, there are plenty of brands out there, man. There are plenty of brands, whether you're a nutrition brand, supplement brand, or a clothing brand or whatever. Jump on that opportunity.
But I would love to see two brands kind of go head to head with the media team and kind of like make a narrative out of like a couple athletes out there, you know, out of a couple profiles. I think that would be fun for me. That's that kind of middle ground of being like, all right, you have this high production, but you also have like a high performer too. Yeah.
You get enough footage as well. You can create like a decent documentary on YouTube.
You can do anything in post.
So much. So here's a call out if you're listening and you have any influence in a marketing team in any brand with a budget of 4 figures. Go find an athlete that is incredible. Like, it wouldn't take a huge budget to follow Phil Gore around. Cool. That was fun.
Stop giving budget to people like Tommy and I.
Yeah, literally. I'm saying no anyway.
We're kind of handing away our own bread at the moment, but I do think it is for the greater good.
I'm not. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I had another video, but it's less of a video that can be shown on or recorded. It's more of just. Should we talk about this one, this Matt Johnson one?
Yep.
So Matt Johnson, I'm going to preface this by saying I love the guy. I think he's fun. yeah, I think he's a great character in space. But he did Tahoe 200 or attempted it. He DNF'd 30 miles in because he fell over, had a pretty nasty injury incident. Anyway, he put out a post saying that he'd spent 15 grand on this event, and I think he was sort of highlighting that, you know, in other events maybe he has had some, you know, he's got a big following, so maybe he's had some assistance to enter the event and had some budget with brands and stuff. But I think this was the only, or one of the first races he'd done for a while that he'd funded himself, and he didn't do it on a budget. Let me get the video. You chat away and fill space. I'll find this.
So yeah, I'm very curious about where this is going. For me, one thing that came up whilst Tommy was talking about it was that he is a character in the space. And I think what's been a theme for me in this podcast is that there's probably a certain way that I would like to see things, but you need characters. You need people like BPN that push things in different directions, and that in one way or another furthers the sport. But yeah, Matt is a character, and I think he's a character because I often see him smoking around running, and I'm just like, not about it. But here we are. There's your space.
Yeah, there's the video. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can see the video. Realizing
for those that aren't,
fun, realizing Type 2 Fun is spending $15,000 to DNF a 200-mile ultramarathon.
And
So I
for
was
the
reading
small,
that. I was reading that backwards. That's why I struggled.
For the small Australian audience, 15,000 USD is 23,000 Australian dollars. So he's put a good chunk into this.
And if we're doing converts, I mean, I reckon it's probably like 13,000 pounds at this stage. So madness. I mean, that's a huge amount of money.
11,000 pounds.
11,000. Okay.
Yeah.
That brings me slight hope. So he's broken this down. Race entry 1,600. This is in dollars. Gear prep 2,200.
Oh, I didn't know you did a breakdown.
Food
Great.
for 5, 3,200. Travel 2.5 grand. Stay, so I guess accommodation, 6 grand. Hospital bills. This is one maybe unique to the US, but unknown. You know, I think, you know, you can do... What I really wanted to bring up on this is you can do these races on a budget. You do not have to spend 15k to do a 200-mile ultramarathon. But it does take a lot to do these things. And, you know, I think it's easy to kind of look at...
It is a privileged sport.
Online. Yeah, it's easy to
particularly
kind of look
ultra.
at them and think that it's, you know, you can just go and do these races and whatever. There's some people online, I don't know how they're affording to do the number of races they're doing. I'm in a really fortunate position where something like Ultra X, they paid for my entry. So I was just paying for, and the accommodation was just camping and stuff. So I was just paying for flights to get out there. Really lucky to have that. Would I be able to do all the races I do without having conversations with people and, you know, going through the back door? I probably wouldn't. You know, I don't have that budget. And so I don't take it for granted for 1 second that I have that privilege, and I never want to kind of make it out as if I don't. I do have that privilege. And it is an expensive thing. My dad really wants me to do Marathon des Sables. And I'm like, Dad, it's like, I've got to put like 5 or 6k behind that. It's like, I'll do it maybe one day, but that's, as soon as I say that, he's like, oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But he's got this sort of romantic view of that race in particular for his own reasons. And
I really like
they're expensive, especially
the
stage
Mewett, the Mewett survey. Like when you do the online survey for Mewett, it's like, where did you fly from? Where are you staying? And it's like, you actually get to see kind of like your economic impact.
Sure.
And like for me, like going and doing MIUT from Oz was like $3.5 grand of flights, stayed there for 6 weeks. Like it does add up like a lot.
Yeah, it for sure does. And I guess what I wanted to talk about is like I'm living a life trying to get people to go for a run. That's my kind of mission. But I also don't want to, because running can be seen as like a cheap sport. This idea that you don't need anything, you just need a pair of shoes. But it's it's clear to me that once you really get into this stuff, it's an expensive hobby to have.
For sure.
And it's not accessible to everyone. And running ultras and all this stuff is not accessible. And I want to talk about how, some of these races, the entry fees are crazy. It's mad. And, I think that I'm not organising these races.
For Moab, but that was going to be like, I think $2,000 to enter Moab if I got in.
There's a payment plan.
Yeah.
I know. I think, Borderlands, my friends over at Borderlands have spoken about this quite a lot. So I don't want to just rehash conversations they've had about like entry fees being high and stuff. But I do feel it myself, and I see it. And I think the good thing that Matt Johnson did with that video is kind of just, although he's done it on a very expensive budget, he's sort of highlighted how expensive it is to do these things, which I don't think gets highlighted enough, basically. I don't think it gets highlighted enough. I think that we make out as if like, oh yeah, you should do ultras and you can do this and you can do that, but not everyone can, because it's really quite expensive. Even these, you do 100k in Europe, the entry fee is likely to be sometimes over £300, $400 or something, and then you got flights out there and you got accommodation. I mean, you're paying over $1,000 to do this trip.
Easy.
So,
let alone he's been in some ways quite kind to the cost, because I think about what it takes. Like if I'm buying Tailwind and gels in just say the last 12 weeks before I finish a big block, it's like I'm spending a lot on nutrition. I'm spending probably more on physio. So that you could probably argue that he's maybe spent like 25,000 US in like all up to have a crack at this. Like it is, but I've been in these conversations with friends before, and I'm like, well, what else would I spend my money on? Like I actually love this. Yeah, I spend a lot of money on physio, on food, but I'm like, look at what it gives me. Look at the people I meet. Look at the places I get to run, the experiences it opens up as a result. I'm like, okay, like if I spend 10 grand across 6 months to train for a race, but I expose myself to so much new life because of it, learnings, whatever, then it's pretty mad investment too.
Yeah, and it's it's all relative. Not everyone has this money to spare. So I want to stress that a lot of running can be done cheaply, and you can gain a huge amount of the benefits that you gain from running by not spending a huge amount. I don't think, for example, it's preferable to have a shoe rotation, but you don't need one.
Yeah.
It's preferable to have a watch that gives you loads of data, but you don't need one. It's preferable to do events, but you don't need one. For me, it's preferable to go and travel and go to the mountains and all this sort of stuff, but you don't need to. I could go to local mountains. There is a lot you can do. You can gain a lot from your running without spending a huge amount of your family budget on it. But at the same time, if this stuff is really important to you, which for us speaking here it is, then you gotta sort of do the CBA, do the cost benefit analysis, and sort of see what you're getting from it. I know the pain of DNFing a race and spending loads of money on it. Not 15k by any means, but MRUT wasn't cheap. The process of entering the race, of traveling out there, of paying for accommodation, all that sort of stuff, just to DNF 26k in, not fun. Big hit. And I'm not made of money. So, I know the pain of that, but for me, I want to do this stuff. I want to invest in this stuff. I want to allot some of my cash. I live in a double income, no kids household. I have I have this dink advantage. But not everyone does. But for those who don't have the budget, I want to stress that none of this is necessary.
Yeah.
It's all chosen by the individual.
And it's not the more you spend, the more you're rewarded either.
Yes,
like you can
exactly.
squeeze a lot of juice from the orange, and by just getting out for a small run every day with one pair of shoes. And yeah, sometimes running more, having more shoes, getting further into it, you don't necessarily squeeze that much more out of running.
Reality is that any hobby that you
Yeah.
have, whether it's a quote-unquote cheap hobby or not, you can spend a huge amount of money on any hobby that you have. You know, I'm sure that if you were really into croquet, you could spend a huge amount of money on croquet.
You best believe I'd have a custom croquet stick.
Oh yeah. So you know, if you're a real audiophile and you love music, and you just can't, like, you're just so into it that you want to spend loads of money on it, you could spend a huge amount of money on a hi-fi system, on headphones. You could collect way too much of it. It's just a hobby, and it's how someone's spending their money. So I think, like, when we see videos from Matt Johnson or whoever else breaking down how much money they spent on their ultramarathon, I basically want to encourage the response rather than, oh, it's so privileged to run ultra marathons. I want the response to be just simply understanding that some people spend a huge amount of money on their hobbies, but that doesn't mean if you have the same hobby that you have to gain the same benefits. You can do this stuff on a budget. It doesn't have to be a 15k loss if you DNF an ultramarathon. Is that a clear point? I don't know.
Very clear. I think might even wrap it there, only because I got to go to yoga.
Yeah, man.
Soon.
This is a good one. I think we went deep on what we had.
Really opened up.
Any final thoughts to close off?
Yeah, but there's one point that we didn't get to, but which was your experiences are yours, and maybe that can be the little teaser for our next episode.
Maybe we'll cover it next time. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
saying to Josh, I was mulling over this idea that we should cherish our own experiences for the fact that they're our own.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it there for next time.
Absolutely. Well, love chatting as always.
Always. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. I actually just want to say thank you to the people from Tommy's audience that listen to this and come over and say, hey, across my channels, podcast, DMs, whatever it is. Thanks. Appreciate
Hell
it.
yeah. It's our audience now, brother.
Yeah. Come on.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you next month for episode 5 of That Snowball.
Big month coming up, actually. Heading
Big
to your
month.
side of the world.
Big month. Yeah. And I'm heading to the States, so we're jetting around. When you come over here, I try and jet off somewhere else. Let's keep this friendship digital.
Yeah. Go on.
All right.
See ya.